And that brings us to our In Focus tonight. Our In Focus tonight is India at 75. That's our In Focus tonight, India at 75, where we'll dissect the journey that India has covered, the path that India has covered, the distance that India has covered, what it's achieved, what it's lacked in the past 75 years of our independence existence. To talk about that, I'm joined by R. Rajagopalan, senior journalist, and also Shekhar Iyer, my friend and a senior journalist. Thank you both gentlemen for joining. R. Rajagopalan, what do you make of the President's speech today, the address to the nation on the eve of the 76th Independence Day? What according to you was significant of what Draupadi Murmu said in her first address as the President of India?
Draupadi Murmu, the first address of the President of India, focused on women empowerment Amitpal. My understanding of her speech in crisp way, if you have to explain that to your audience, I would like to say well drafted, well rehearsed, and moreover she brought in almost all the welfare schemes of the government of India, especially by Mr. Narendra Modi's. And second thing, whatever Madam Murmu, the President of India, has enunciated today in her, I jotted down some 56 important points. Out of them, I would like to, enumerate. The focus was on the women's rights to get the voting. First she started with that, and she focused it on women empowerment, CWT games, Commonwealth Games, and fighter pilot. She remembered many women contribution in the space science. Apart from that, the way in which Atma Vishwas, and second thing, if you categorize it in such a way, ABCD of a speech in a simple form, Atmanirbharta, Beti Bachao, COVID, and digitalization. This type of, she made 1, 2, 3, 4, many points. Jal, Har Jal. And moreover, the visionary of Mr. Narendra Modi of inaugurating vaccination of 200 crore Indians is not an easy joke or easy task, Amitpal. The way in which she has also brought it before is very, very interesting. And this is her second major speech. First, as she is sworn in, she also spoke about prayas, sabka prayas. She extended the term of Madam Murmu, had given fifth connotation of what Mr. Narendra Modi's Vikas Yatra, sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka prayas, sabka vishwas, sabka prayas. She has also added the fifth dimension to that. So therefore, she has a visionary, inputs in her address. And this has been guided by the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi's many social welfare programs. In short, I would like to say the 2019 mandate of Mr. Narendra Modi was given to Mr. Narendra Modi's social welfare programs. And second thing, for electing Madam Murmu also in an indirect way, because the tremendous amount of majority Mr. Narendra Modi got, he has given it to a tribal woman, and that too a very interesting aspect of Murmu's election.
Okay. Yes, of course. She mentioned the government's, celebrating 15th November as the Janjatiya Gaurav Divas, and she says, in the dominant narrative, the dominant narrative are my own words, but basically she was trying to say that, the tribal icons weren't just regional or local icons, they were national heroes, and the government is trying to give them their due. But Shekhar, I want to begin, I have with the speech of the President with me right now. I want to, I want to begin with the first thing she talks about. She says when we became independent 75 years ago, or when we were becoming independent, or in the process of becoming independent, there were many skeptics who said, well, democracy won't work in this country, they are poor, they're illiterate, and at that time the dominant narrative was democracy is for, relatively well-off or economically stable countries with a certain amount of education. She says the Indians proved them wrong. Not only that, democracy was adopted, but it grew roots in the soil and it was enriched too. And the reasoning she gives for that is that she says democracy was inherently a part of our civilization, where we defined our vision of humanity was defined by equality of all, and oneness of all, and that is where it led to enrichment and strengthening of the democracy. And she says today, when you see Har Ghar Tiranga campaign, the tricolor flying across the length and breadth of the country, fluttering on rooftops, on people's vehicles, etc., the collective spirit of Bhartiyata or Indianness finds utterance in that campaign.
Absolutely, Amritpalji. In fact, the president has sought to catch the mood of optimism among our people, the mood of hope, the mood of confidence, and a firm belief that in the coming days their lives will get better, they will get better avenues to improve their welfare, and at the same time new opportunities will open for our youth, cutting across caste and creed and all barriers. And also the women particularly will play a greater role, and they will see several glass ceilings shatter and opening up for them. So in the president sought to catch the mood that prevails today in the country. Yes, there are tremendous challenges. Yes, there are tremendous dangers ahead. Yes, there are tremendous, I would say, potholes which we'll have to traverse to reach our goal. All this is there, but yet the fact that we can do it, that confidence has come because that 75 years of a journey, that journey has told us that we have that capability, we have that ability, we have that potential to beat it. And the last 8 years in particular has brought about a greater realization what is possible. Because essentially in the last 8 years what we have seen is India is a land of possibilities, that we can do it. What was taught, say a few years ago, this cannot happen in this country. We can never have bank accounts, we can never stop the looting of subsidies, we can never ensure direct payment, we can never ensure the beneficiaries directly get what is intended for them. We ourselves have seen. Yes, she did mention about those cynics, particularly in the West, when our country was born 75 years ago, who felt that because of numerous divisions, because of numerous languages, communities, all living in this country, that India could not perhaps survive as a democracy. In fact, some of the critics went to say that India would bleed to death. But they have all have been proved wrong. And even modern critics who feel that India cannot change, India cannot go by a modern system of governance, good quality governance, even they are being proved wrong. Particularly with the schemes that the president mentioned today, whether it is Prime Minister's Awas Yojana, or it is Jal Jeevan Mission, or it is
the Pradhan Mantri Gati Shakti Yojana.
Gati Shakti Yojana, I mean 1 lakh crore for infrastructure. I mean, these are not just earmarking of funds, but these are grand visions for our country. And today, President's address, fully endorses what the government of the day has planned for our future, and it reflects the will of the people. Amritpalji.
Absolutely. R. Rajagopalan, you mentioned from the President's address, when she mentions and says, we've crossed the 200 crore mark in cumulative vaccine coverage. The government rolled out, we saw not only did India vaccinate its own people at the height of the pandemic, we helped other countries also. Government aside, our doctors, our nurses, our healthcare professionals, they came out and and our people in general, our citizens, they must be complimented for that. Despite our noisy differences, despite our disagreements, despite skeptics saying, well, should we get vaccinated, should we not get vaccinated, we put that aside, came together, showed great resilience and achieved what we have.
Absolutely, Amritpal. What Madam Murmu has spoken is about the 200 vaccination. That is not an easy thing, to handle a crisis like a pandemic. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi had handled it with aplomb. And according to President Murmu, Madam Murmu's speech, Amritkal starts from the COVID vaccination. And 2047, she says, we will end up, the youngsters of today will celebrate in a joyful manner. So she was with, on a high pitch, she was an emotional feeling that could be exhibited with Madam's, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Naya Bharat, and apart from that, she brought out lot of praises for the scientists, whether it is vaccination or space scientists or anywhere. So, Jal Jeevan is not Har Jal. That is the pet, project of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Plus, she also complimented the Susasans. She also mentioned about that. And second, Atma Viswas Nayachi said, that's what she emphasized. She also brought Birsa Munda's sacrifice. She mentioned in an indirect way 15th November as Jan Jayatya Nayak Divas. What does it mean? It is honoring Mr. Birsa Munda, who fought for India's freedom, even in the
and through Birsa Munda, many
but speech, and she ended with the Kuvempu's Karnataka poet, very famous poet.
Right.
Ammudu, Mudu, I will pass, so shall you, but on our bones will rise the great tale of New India. What he dreamt a long years ago, now Narendra Modi is dreaming that, and that was reflected by Madam Murmu, President of India's speech.
All right. Shikhar, the President talked about a lot of things, digital India, and she talked about our achievements in various fields. I mean, you've referred to some of them, the Jal Shakti, the Har Ghar Jal scheme under the Jal Shakti program, the Prime Minister's Awas program for, housing for all. She spoke about healthcare, she spoke about startups, etc. But she says, and I read from her speech, the aim of these and many other similar efforts is to provide basic amenities to all, particularly the poor. The key word for India today is compassion for the downtrodden, for the needy, and for those on the margins. Then she goes on to talk about how national values are, enshrined in our constitution for protection of, all sections of society. What is the message that the President was giving through this?
Well, if you recall, her first speech in the Central Hall of Parliament after she was sworn in, she had for the first time mentioned, compassion as a guiding principle of our governance. That's a very, very significant observation from the President. And at that time also it was noticed by all of us that President Murmu has brought compassion as a key element in way we should look at our programs and policies and our initiatives. So when she says, if you keep compassion in your mind, it is following what Mahatma Gandhi ji said long ago. Before you think of do anything, think of the poorest person, think of the face of the poor, and then act. So therefore, when we are talking of all these missions, whether it is Awas Yojana, whether it is Bijli Sadak Pani, or we are talking of Shauchalaya for the poor, and the way today, the dwelling units are being conceived for the poor. The housing program itself you take. Because the Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji believes that when you are implementing such schemes, let it be in a wholesome manner. Provide a house that has sanitation, provide a house that has LPG connection, provide a house that has safe drinking water connection, piped water supply, so that everything is available. We have had building houses for the poor. Even you had Indira Gandhi Awas Yojana, and we know what kind of complaints used to come about the quality of construction, about the basic amenities missing, as if somebody had earmarked some money and that had to be implemented in a manner, and many of those houses were not livable, and those lot of money went waste. But today the approach is different, because you are conceiving a home, and home is not just made of four walls.
Right.
It has to have all these basic amenities so that a family can live there. And yes, a roof above one's head, I think, is a very significant way of conveying empowerment. And that is only possible if our authorities, people who execute such projects, have compassion as a guiding principle.
As a guiding principle at the heart of it. Okay. R. Rajagopalan, I again read from the President's speech. She says, at the core of transformation We have been witnessing healthcare, education, economy, as well as number of related areas. But if the stress is on good governance, when work is done with the spirit of nation first, only then is it bound to reflect in every decision of the government in every sector. What is the message that she's trying to convey?
No, she has carried forward the BJP's election manifesto of 2019. Amit Pal, in my long experience in reporting the parliament and the political activities, I would like to, give three important aspects of President Murmu's speech. One, it is born out of, the BJP's election manifesto of 2019, which all reflected what you just now mentioned. And second thing, today she has said very important aspect which we did not discuss, and we must deliberate on that. The increasing women participation in social and political process will prove very decisive. And at the grassroots level, we have more than 14 lakh elected women representative in panchayat institution. Thereby, gender equalities are reducing, and women are moving forward, breaking the many glass ceilings. So, therefore, India has found a new confidence in the stem of the spirits of youth. That is also one aspect in BJP's manifesto. On that, people voted, the voters voted 303 seats for.
No, it may have been in BJP's manifesto, but one second. I have Rajgopalan. It may have been in BJP's manifesto, but today, when Draupadi Murmu speaks, she speaks as the president of the country. She speaks as the first.
Intention. She reflects the people's mandate. She reflects whatever the government social welfare programs are.
The first citizen of the country is speaking to the rest of us.
2019 is women participation.
Yes.
That is reflected in this speech. That is what I am pointing it out. And second thing, what she spoke, very, very carefully worded paragraph, it has broken many glass ceilings, which is very, very interesting turn of, her speech. That I would like to focus on that.
Okay. Absolutely.
So therefore, economic empowerment, women's participation, corona crisis, digitalization, these are all impact of Mr. Narendra Modi's government. That is what the President Murmu has reflected on. And second thing, as we speak, you are showing a drone on the screen of our television screen. That drone revolution is also of Mr. Narendra Modi's government, He has given a drone policy. That also she mentioned in digitalization revolution.
Absolutely. All right. Shikhar, my last question to you. As Rajagopalan pointed out the poem of Kavempu, the great poet in Kannada, where she says, and I'll again read it out, I will pass, so will you, but on our bones will arise the great tale of a new India. She said it is a clarion call by the poet for the youth and for the youth of today on something which is very critical to the world, climate change and environment, but which is rooted in our traditional values. So if we revisit the values that we come from, we can be the change that the world needs today.
Yes, Amarpalji, there is a lot of philosophy and acceptance and understanding of the coming years, I would say, because, see, we are today witnessing India of 2022 when we have completed 75 years of independence. We have achieved so much progress in many fields. There is more to be done, a lot of ground to be covered. A lot of our people's quality of life has to improve. These are challenges before them. There is no denying. But in fact, when we look at India of 2047, that is 25 years from now on, some of us may be around, some of us may not be there. But what we have to do it today. And we have to do it with the belief that nation comes first. Rest comes everything. In whatever station we are in life, whatever responsibilities we have, whether as a bureaucrat, as a government servant, as a soldier, as a broadcaster, as a journalist, as a lawyer, as a judge, whatever role we play in
as a common citizen of this, responsible common citizen of this country, Shikhar.
Yes, so we all have a role to play, and it is not that the government has to do it and we have to just sit and observe. Each of us will have to perform to our best abilities, and yes, and leave behind a rich treasure of our own work, the fruits of our work for the future generation. And that requires sustainable development, nourishment of our environment, nourishment of our culture and tradition, and nourishment of our people, no matter where they belong, no matter what language they speak, no matter what creed or caste or whatever it is. But this is the India of future.
Absolutely.
A future that we know is definitely going to happen.
Absolutely. In fact, before I thank you, R. Rajagopalan and Shekhar, let me again go back to the President's speech, and I can't help reading this out. She says, "Our beloved country has given us everything we have in our life. We should pledge to give everything we can for the sake of safety, security, progress and prosperity of our country. Our existence will become meaningful only in building a glorious India." And I think that's a great message to us as citizens on the eve of the 76th Independence Day. R. Rajagopalan, before we finish, you wanted to come in.
The final point I would like to say, today's Madam Draupadi Murmu's President of India speech and also her pronunciation of this Kannada poet Kuvempu is a perfect one, because she has also learned Telugu and Kannada, being a Odia woman. And second thing, the Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, the Bharatiya concept. Our country is full of diversity, but at the same time, we all something in common. In the common thread which binds all is Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat.
All right. On that note, we leave it there, and we wish you all a very, very happy Independence Day. Thank you, both gentlemen, for joining. Jai Hind. Yes. And the Har Ghar Tiranga campaign is